Hi guys, my name's Doug. I'm a member of the technical service team here at Task Force Tips. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to replace the shaper on a 1-inch G Force nozzle. Several items going to be needed to perform this service properly. You're going to need a pin spanner of about 5 millimeters in diameter on the pin, a 9/64 hex key, a sharp knife for cutting labels, and if you have a flat bladed knife for scraping the labels out of the way. A little bit of blue thread locker, we use blue Loctite, as well as some Dow 112 100% silicone grease. And then of course if we're replacing the shaper, we're going to need the new shaper itself. There's an internal quad ring that you might as well replace while you're in there as well. And in doing this service, you'll also have to replace the clamp label and the tactile indicator label, so make sure you have some of those before you embark on this. Now this particular shaper has spinning teeth. As well, it has a tactile indicator on top. This nozzle is set to indicate the flashover position when the tactile indicator is on top. It's also got a spring-loaded ball so that you feel a little catch in that position. So to start this service, we're going to remove that tactile indicator. Like I mentioned, there is a spring under there, but it's not under so much load that it's going to come shooting out. Just something to be aware of as you're taking that apart. Using the 9/64 hex key, we're going to remove the 2 screws that hold that indicator on the top of the shaper. The indicator, the screws, the ball, the spring, we'll be reusing those as we put this back together. So as you take that second screw out, just kind of hold on to the tactile indicator, then pull it out of the way. The spring will come with it. And then internally there's a small Torlon ball. That's what gives it the detent feel. Take that out and set that aside. We'll reuse those later as well. Now in order to remove the shaper, there's a threaded clamp ring, and it's the label on the clamp ring that holds that threaded joint tight. So what we need to do is take a sharp knife, and if you look at the label, you can kind of see a ridge in the label. That's the joint where we want to cut. We just want to make a slice in the label all the way around. Just like any time you're using sharp knives, take precaution, cut away from you, keep your hands out of the way, don't run with scissors, all the normal precautions you take when using sharp knives. Cut that all the way around. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to find somewhere in that label, you'll find a series of holes underneath the label. There I've just kind of poked through the label there. That's where we're going to insert our pin spanner. Insert that, and while holding the shaper, we want to loosen that clamp ring. Once you have it loosened, initially it may take a little bit of brake force to get it to break free. But once you have it loosened, you can go ahead and unthread that completely and just let it stay there, reside on the nozzle. So at that point, you can grab the shaper and just pull it straight up and off the nozzle. Set that aside if we're replacing it. Earlier we talked about replacing the quad ring on here. The quad ring is what seals the barrel of the nozzle to the inside of the shaper, so there's no water leakage past the shaper. Just using a pointed pick, get under the quad ring and just pull it off. Set it aside, we're going to replace that. And then also, if you twist the shaper guide, be careful. There's 3 guide balls inside there that we want to kind of retain. If we get those to come out of the grooves, we can just pull that shaper guide straight off. Again, make sure we retain those balls for later installation. Those balls are what ride in this groove, and as you twist the shaper back and forth, that causes the shaper to move in and out for your straight stream and fog setting. Go ahead and take the clamp ring off. The purpose in taking this off is so that we can take the old label off of the clamp ring. Again, depending on how you're scraping this off, be careful. Just get under the label and scrape it completely out of the way. Once you have the label completely off, just set the debris aside. We're going to install a new label later. Go ahead and put the clamp ring back onto the nozzle. And then also put the shaper guide onto the nozzle. Now, taking the new quad ring, put a little bit of grease under the groove where the quad ring goes. Put the quad ring on, and then make sure that when it's on, it's not twisted, and then grease over the quad ring. By greasing the groove and then over the quad ring, we get 360 degrees of grease around that seal. Now you'll notice on these labels that there are some stream indicators: straight stream, partial fog, and full fog. If you're not replacing that label, when we put this on, we just kind of want to make sure that the partial fog setting or the flashover position is aligned with the detent groove for the shaper of the nozzle. Next, we'll take the new shaper, slide it past that quad ring directly onto the nozzle. Once it goes over the shaper guide, it'll keep those balls captive. We no longer have to worry about those falling out. Next, we're just going to thread that clamp ring on loosely. We're not going to make it tight just yet, because as we complete this service, we're going to have to set the flashover position of this nozzle. So position the flashover receptacle here just above the groove in the barrel. You can see it down through the hole. Place the detent ball in there. It helps sometimes to put just a tiny bit of grease on the end of the spring. That helps to hold it in the indicator as you're installing it. The screws that we took out earlier, we're going to put just a small dab of blue thread locker on each of the threads. Position the flashover or the tactile indicator back on the top of the nozzle, holding it down to compress that spring. Insert the screw into each hole and thread those in until they're just snug. They don't need to be overly tight, just so that the tactile indicator is fully seated. Using a bit of acetone or something similar, we want to clean the surface of that indicator so that the new label we install adheres well. Just give that a good wipe to get any grease out of the way that we may have gotten on there when we were doing assembly. Pull the backing from the label and simply apply it in the recess where the label goes. Now the next thing to completing this service may require a bit of water flow to get it set properly. We're not going to flow water in here, obviously, but if you leave the clamp ring loose, we've got that tactile indicator in our flashover position, or where we'll feel that detent. If you turn the shaper guide back and forth, you'll notice the shaper moves back and forth with it. So the recommendation is to hook this up to a line and achieve the flow you desire, the volume of flow you desire, and adjust that shaper guide back and forth until you have the desired fog pattern in that flashover position. Once you've achieved the fog pattern that you hope for, holding the shaper in that position, tighten that clamp ring to hold it in place until you can get back to the workbench. Once you've disconnected and you're back at your workbench, now you can take your pin spanner, and again, holding that shaper in place as best you can, tighten that clamp ring down. See, we're aligned with the flashover position here in the tactile indicator. We've got that clamp ring tight now, so that will hold the shaper where it should be throughout its rotation. Again, take some acetone, and we want to clean that label area. As I mentioned earlier in the video, this label that we apply is the locker. We don't use any thread compound on these threads. We use the label to retain that clamp ring. So we want to make sure that surface is clean so that the label can adhere as best as possible. Pull the backer from the label. You'll have to tuck it just under the tactile indicator there and wrap that around as in as straight a line as you can, using the clamp ring as a guide. Press that down firmly to seat it. And that will lock that ring in place for a long time. That completes the shaper replacement of a 1-inch G Force nozzle. If you have other questions as to the maintenance of these nozzles, you can turn to our website, tft.com, under the library section. In the library section are all our manuals. For this particular nozzle, you're looking for document LIG-012. That document contains other maintenance practices and suggestions, as well as it contains all the individual part schematics and part numbers for all the items we talked about today. Can't find what you're looking for there? Don't hesitate to reach out to us. All of our contact information is at tft.com. Thank you.